China in panic over Defense Minister Minoru Kihara's announcement. China shocked by military assets from Japan and the U.S. In October 13 exercises, Xi Jinping stunned by unprecedented scale of keen sword. China immediately withdraws from the Taiwan Strait. Chinese diplomatic channels express extreme concern amidst utter panic. In a recent analysis, highlighted the growing anxiety within the Chinese government following the bold statements made by Japan's Defense Minister Minoru Kihara. During a high-profile diplomatic event, Kihara made a striking remark, emphasizing the importance of transparency and honesty over deception and manipulation in international relations. This statement, although seemingly straightforward, has triggered significant concern in Beijing, not just for its content but for what it represents. Japan's growing military confidence and assertiveness on the global stage, particularly in its alliance with the United States. Kihara's statement comes at a time when Japan has been progressively increasing its defense capabilities and strengthening its strategic ties with the U.S. through various joint military exercises like Freedom Edge and the upcoming Keen Sword. These exercises, involving large-scale deployments of advanced military equipment such as the Aegis destroyers, F-35 jets, and USS Carl Vinson, showcase Japan's determination to enhance its readiness for regional defense. For China, the involvement of such formidable assets represents not only a military threat but also a symbolic shift in Japan's post-war pacifist stance. Pointed out that for Beijing, Kihara's call for transparency was more than just rhetoric. It was a direct challenge to China's approach in the East and South China Seas, where accusations of aggressive and opaque military strategies have been rampant. This rhetoric, coming from a nation historically perceived as a non-militarized actor, now strikes at the heart of China's diplomatic and military positioning in Asia. The Chinese government, already on edge from its economic struggles and growing diplomatic isolation, viewed Kihara's comments as a signal of Japan's commitment to a more confrontational stance. Additionally, the backdrop of China's own internal issues, ranging from economic downturns to public dissatisfaction, has compounded the pressure on Beijing's leadership, particularly President Xi Jinping, who is already dealing with waning confidence from international partners and mounting domestic challenges. The analysis suggests that China's immediate response was to step up military surveillance and posturing in key maritime zones, notably around the contested Senkaku/Diaoyu Islands, reflecting Beijing's concern over Japan's evolving military assertiveness. This reaction, however, also betrays deeper insecurities within China's strategic circles. With Japan now actively collaborating with the U.S. in large-scale drills like the one on October 13, where cutting-edge technologies and strategic defense systems were put to the test, China faces the reality of a more militarily capable Japan right at its doorstep. This, as Takahashi notes, is a critical blow to China's aspirations of uncontested dominance in the region. China's leadership, therefore, perceives Japan's newfound military confidence, exemplified by Kihara's remarks, as a destabilizing factor. With Japan no longer confined by constitutional pacifism in its defense approach, Beijing's strategic depth is increasingly being tested. As explains, Japan's recent defense reforms and increased military cooperation with the U.S. signify a departure from past doctrines, pushing China to reconsider its own strategic calculations. The hoarding of resources and accelerated military deployments in response to Japan's rhetoric is indicative of China's growing anxiety. This, combined with the pressure of maintaining its grip on Taiwan, has left Beijing scrambling to manage its image on both military and diplomatic fronts. In summary, Professor Takahashi's analysis emphasizes that Kihara's seemingly simple remark has unraveled deeper fears within China's strategic community. It has exposed the vulnerabilities that lie beneath China's assertive exterior, particularly as Japan, bolstered by its alliance with the U.S., positions itself as a key player in countering Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific region. In a detailed analysis, delved into the strategic implications of the joint military exercise conducted by Japan and the United States on October 13, 2024. The event showcased an impressive array of military assets that left Chinese defense analysts in a state of shock, further intensifying tensions in the Indo-Pacific region. According to Takahashi, the scale and sophistication of the equipment deployed during this exercise signified a pivotal shift in Japan's defense posture, particularly when combined with the robust support from the United States. During the exercise, the presence of the USS Carl Vinson, one of America's most advanced aircraft carriers, and Japan's Aegis-equipped destroyers was seen as a direct challenge to China's military capabilities in the region. The inclusion of advanced fighter jets like the F-35, along with Japan's JS Atago and JS Kongo, demonstrated the growing technical and operational interoperability between Japan and the U.S. For China, this exercise not only showcased the cutting-edge technology fielded by its regional rivals but also highlighted the speed at which Japan's military modernization has progressed. China's leadership, particularly President Xi Jinping, has long viewed Japan's growing military collaboration with the United States as a destabilizing factor. Professor Takahashi pointed out that, despite China's own considerable military advancements, the deployment of systems like the Aegis ballistic missile defense (BMD) creates a formidable counterbalance to China's strategic objectives in the East China Sea and beyond. The exercise clearly displayed how Japan, with U.S. backing, could neutralize some of China's most significant strategic assets, including its missile capabilities. In the wake of the exercise, Chinese media largely downplayed the event, yet internal sources within the military were reportedly alarmed at the implications. The collaboration between the U.S. and Japan, especially in the field of missile defense and anti-submarine warfare, directly threatens China's plans for regional dominance. The P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft and the P-1 anti-submarine patrol planes deployed by the two nations were particularly effective in demonstrating Japan and America's capability to detect and neutralize any underwater threats posed by China's submarine fleet. The analysis also touched on how this demonstration of military might is likely to have long-term effects on China's military planning. With Japan now playing an increasingly active role in regional security, Beijing is faced with the uncomfortable reality of having a highly capable and technologically advanced neighbor, capable of countering its ambitions in contested territories. The joint exercises are a stark reminder to China that Japan's constitutional pacifism is no longer a constraint on its ability to project power, particularly in the defense of key maritime routes. Moreover, this military display adds to the psychological pressure on China's leadership. The timing of this exercise, following a series of diplomatic setbacks and internal economic challenges, further weakens China's position on the global stage. The sheer visibility of the exercise and its focus on the defense of Japan's territorial waters signaled to Beijing that Japan, with U.S. backing, is prepared to confront any threats to its sovereignty, including those arising from China's aggressive maritime policies. In the words, Chinese President Xi Jinping was left reeling after witnessing the unprecedented scale of the Keen Sword exercise conducted by Japan and the United States in November 2024. As Takahashi explains, what shocked the Chinese leadership was not just the sheer size of the operation, 36,000 troops, 30 ships, and 370 aircraft, but the message it sent. Japan is no longer the passive military player it once was. Xi Jinping, who had long relied on Japan's pacifist constitution and limited military posture to balance power in the region, found himself facing a Japan that had rapidly become a major strategic player, working hand in hand with the U.S. to challenge China's dominance. The intensity of the Keen Sword exercise, with its focus on defending remote islands and countering missile threats, was a direct response to the regional tensions stoked by China's aggressive territorial claims. As analyzed, China has long asserted its control over the South China Sea and expanded its military influence in the East China Sea, especially near the Senkaku/Diaoyu Islands. The Japanese-American exercise, which included state-of-the-art military assets such as the USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group and Japan's F-35 fighter jets, demonstrated to China that its claims in these disputed waters were no longer uncontested. What particularly unsettled Xi Jinping, Takahashi noted, was the scale and coordination of the missile defense systems tested during the exercise. The Aegis ballistic missile defense systems, deployed by both Japan and the U.S., are designed to neutralize ballistic missile threats, directly undermining China's strategic reliance on its missile capabilities. For China, which has developed and invested heavily in ballistic missile technology as a key element of its regional deterrence, the success of the Keen Sword drills signaled a significant strategic setback. Japan's growing ability to defend its territories against missile attacks, combined with U.S. support, poses a direct threat to China's military ambitions. Moreover, Takahashi highlighted that the scale of Keen Sword was not just about numbers but about sending a powerful diplomatic and military message. For Xi Jinping, it signified that Japan's defense alliance with the U.S. had reached new heights, with the two nations fully prepared to engage in joint military operations to defend Japanese territory. This coordination was a stark contrast to the past, where Japan's military capabilities were limited and largely defensive. Now, Japan is actively positioning itself as a key player in regional security, much to China's dismay. The timing of the exercise also played a crucial role in Xi Jinping's response. With domestic pressures mounting in China, from economic struggles to internal dissent, the display of military strength from Japan and the U.S. added to the external pressures facing the Chinese government. As Takahashi explains, China's leadership was already grappling with the fallout from a slowing economy and growing international scrutiny. The spectacle of Keen Sword, with its focus on island defense and missile protection, further highlighted China's vulnerabilities in the region, leaving Xi Jinping in a difficult strategic position. According to Yoichi, China's sudden retreat from the Taiwan Strait following the U.S. Japan military exercises sent shockwaves through regional and global observers. The Freedom Edge and Keen Sword exercises demonstrated a level of military preparedness that Beijing had underestimated. Xi Jinping's administration, which had been ramping up military pressure around Taiwan for years, found itself in a precarious situation as the military capabilities of the U.S. and Japan were showcased in full force. The deployment of advanced assets like the USS Carl Vinson, F-35 fighters, and the Aegis missile defense systems posed a direct challenge to China's ambitions in the region, particularly its ability to project power over Taiwan. Noted that China's naval forces, previously engaged in aggressive maneuvers near Taiwan, were forced to scale back their presence in the area. The reason was clear: the joint U.S. Japan exercises made it evident that any further escalation would be met with swift and overwhelming military response. In this scenario, China risked a direct confrontation with two of the world's most technologically advanced and well-coordinated militaries. Such a conflict, as Takahashi emphasized, would be catastrophic for China, both in terms of military losses and international reputation. This retreat, however, was not just a tactical decision but a recognition of the new military reality in the region. Japan, traditionally seen as a passive player in defense, had now positioned itself as a formidable force, particularly in protecting key maritime routes and deterring Chinese aggression. The drills, which focused on island defense and missile interception, clearly illustrated that any attempt by China to dominate the Taiwan Strait or adjacent waters would face significant resistance. This realization prompted Beijing to pull back its naval forces, a move seen by many as a strategic recalibration in the face of overwhelming odds. The internal response in China was equally telling. As analyzed, the retreat caused unease within the Chinese military establishment, which had long been preparing for a show of strength in the Taiwan Strait. Instead, the withdrawal was a stark reminder that China's strategic ambitions could be easily countered by the U.S. Japan alliance. Furthermore, the retreat also reflected poorly on Xi Jinping's leadership, as it highlighted the limitations of China's military reach in the face of coordinated regional defense efforts. While China has continued to build up its military presence in the South China Sea, the abrupt pullback from Taiwan demonstrated the challenges Beijing faces in balancing its aggressive posture with the reality of regional security dynamics. In some analysis, the aftermath of Japan and the United States military exercises prompted a swift and alarmed reaction from China's diplomatic channels. Following the overwhelming display of military power in the Freedom Edge and Keen Sword drills, China's foreign ministry, typically vocal and assertive, found itself in a state of heightened anxiety. This anxiety was not only fueled by the military implications of the exercises but also by the broader geopolitical message they sent. The U.S. Japan alliance was stronger and more cohesive than ever, presenting a direct counter to China's ambitions in the Indo-Pacific region. Being observed that, immediately after these exercises, Chinese diplomats were dispatched on a series of urgent meetings with allies, including Russia and North Korea. Beijing's aim was to fortify its own alliances in the face of what it saw as an increasingly encircling strategy by the U.S. and Japan. However, the meetings yielded little more than symbolic support, with no concrete commitments from China's partners. This lack of tangible backing only deepened Beijing's concerns. The professor further noted that China's diplomatic engagements during this period were marked by a tone of desperation. Faced with the combined might of U.S. and Japanese military forces, China sought to reassure its regional partners, particularly within ASEAN, that its influence remained intact. However, behind closed doors, Chinese diplomats expressed significant unease. The realization that Japan's military had now developed to a point where it could present a formidable challenge to Chinese forces, especially in coordination with U.S. capabilities, put Beijing on the defensive. Compounding this diplomatic concern was the fact that the military exercises took place amidst a backdrop of China's economic and political instability. Internally, the leadership was grappling with economic downturns and growing dissatisfaction within its borders, making it all the more difficult to project an image of strength abroad. The swift and formidable nature of the U.S. Japan alliance, highlighted in Keen Sword, left China with fewer options on the diplomatic front. As pointed out, the normally aggressive rhetoric from Chinese officials gave way to more cautious and restrained messaging during this period, a clear sign of their apprehension. The combination of these military and diplomatic pressures, as Takahashi explained, forced China into a corner. With its military power being counterbalanced and its diplomatic avenues providing limited reassurance, China found itself in a position of unprecedented vulnerability. This vulnerability, according to the professor, was reflected in the tone of Chinese media and government statements, which began to focus more on defensive postures rather than aggressive expansion. The overwhelming might of the Japan exercises had sent a clear message. Any further escalation from China would be met with a unified and potent military response.